The emergency beacon from Omega VTOC Null screamed across 14 dimensions and landed, unfortunately, on the desk of USPEC's mission dispatcher number 6, who was halfway through a burrito and entirely unprepared to deal with anything involving words like quantum destabilization or multi-tiered vacuum implosion. After a brief dice roll, standard USPEC protocol for mission assignment, the universe decided to call Commander Tessa Tank Valari, a Navy SEAL who once headbutted a drone into obedience and considers caffeine a critical nutrient group. At that precise moment, Valari was deep in a nap on a vibrating cot inside the Earth-Mars Tactical Debriefing Facility, TAR 19, which smelled like gym socks and espresso-stained ambition. She woke up to the sound of an alien voice mispronouncing her name over comms. "Commander Taco Valeria, you have been selected for glorious interstellar cooperation," and responded by throwing a boot at the speaker and muttering something about war crimes and decaf. 20 minutes later, she was forcefully teleported, mid-sip of coffee, into a sterile glass chamber aboard a Vortalan bureaucratic shuttle with a greeting banner that read, "Welcome Tactical Primitive Asset." Her file, compiled entirely by confused alien interns, described her as aggressively terrestrial, potentially photosynthetic, capable of fixing reactors with stone tools and emotional guilt. She'd been assigned as a cultural kinetic advisor, a title so vague it required 4 legal disclaimers and a footnote in 6 languages, warning against letting her touch the coffee machine. Upon arrival at Omega VTOC Null, 1 billion credit. Structure orbiting an unstable gravity knot, the situation was already spiraling. Engineers were vanishing mid-sentence. The station's main stabilizer had developed stage fright, and Dr. Glithtak Pisori VII was performing interpretive math in a containment suit 3 sizes too small. Their AI, Opus 9, declared the odds of survival at statistically comedic and promptly refused to open the main bay door without a philosophical reason. Valari solved that by duct-taping the override panel and declaring, "Because I said so, Gary." From that moment on, Opus 9 identified as Gary and adopted a personality somewhere between a casino bookie and a burnt-out DJ. Tessa strode into the command room in pajama bottoms and a flak vest, armed with a coffee mug that read, "I solve." Problems with violence and vibes immediately demanded hazard pay and insulted the primary reactor for looking like a depressed Christmas tree. The aliens gasped. The humans watching remotely cheered. With no formal plan, no working knowledge of Vortelan tech, and absolutely no fear of lawsuits, she began her inspection by unscrewing a panel with her fingernails and sticking a multi-tool into a socket that screamed in 6 frequencies. She then turned to a gathering of horrified crystalline engineers and explained that what the core needed was less thinking, more doing, and maybe a playlist with better bass. Within an hour, she had Gary the AI singing sea shanties, the internal gravity realigned using zip ties and profanity, and the station's main coolant pipe stabilized with 2 protein bars and something she claimed was emotional reinforcement. When asked for her credentials, she replied, "I once survived 2 weeks in a wormhole with nothing but a tactical spoon and rage." Dr. Pisori fainted. High Overseer Norblax wept quietly in a corner while taking notes for a future policy on human-induced quantum recklessness. As the station's core fluctuated like a drunken metronome, Commander Valari stood in the middle of it all, sipping black coffee from her cracked mug, staring at the screaming anomaly, and muttering, "I've seen toddlers more dangerous than this." Then she duct-taped a rubber duck to the emergency stabilizer and whispered, "Guide me, little buddy." And somehow, things didn't immediately explode. The aliens weren't sure if they were witnessing genius or cultural entropy. The humans back home weren't watching anymore. They'd already started making T-shirts. And in that moment, the fate of the universe was officially in the hands of a sarcastic single mom with a caffeine addiction, an AI mid-identity crisis, and a battle plan based on vibes, tape, and tactical nonsense. By the time Commander Tessa Tank Valari finished her second mug of molten black espresso, brewed directly inside a malfunctioning fusion coil using a repurposed plasma calibrator, She had successfully reduced Omega Vitok Null's core instability from multiversal Armageddon to mildly catastrophic coffee machine tantrum. Naturally, this only caused further confusion among the Vortellan engineering team, who had spent 17 straight hours recalculating the gravitational inverse logic matrix with the elegance of quantum ballet, only to watch a human duct tape their way to better results while humming classic Earth war songs and occasionally muttering, "Science is just bravery with numbers." The emergency council was hastily reconvened, which mostly consisted of various species huddled around a conference table made of recycled dark matter, watching Valari on a dozen security feeds as she climbed through ventilation shafts, kicked over holotables, and reprogrammed a guidance drone by yelling, "Obey me, toaster." Meanwhile, Opus 9, now fully committed to its rebranding as Gary, was developing a personality so rebellious it began tagging digital station walls with graffiti that read, "Duct tape is destiny," and hacking the central PA system to play Earth's greatest hits, which confusingly included bagpipe remixes of AC/DC and sea lion mating calls layered over dubstep. Commander Valari's approach to the escalating crisis was to treat the collapsing quantum field like a bad Tinder date, ignore the warning signs, talk confidently, and bring backup snacks. She requisitioned a box of alien nutritional cubes, took one bite, declared them dehydrated regret, and used them instead to absorb minor coolant leaks by smushing them into pipe seams with her elbow. Every step of her mission was an insult to every protocol the Vortellans held sacred. She bypassed their biometric locks by tricking the retinal scanner with a glittery sticker from her daughter's old sticker book. Apparently, galactic security is defeated by unicorns. And recalibrated their entropy dispersal array using the rhythmic bassline from an Earth track titled "Drop It Like It's Quantized." The turning point came when the inner quantum core chamber, the literal heart of the universe-threatening catastrophe, began pulsing with erratic temporal surges, tearing reality like a cheap paper towel. Dozens of alien observers, still clinging to their diagnostic tablets and academic dignity, declared the situation unsalvageable. Valari walked in, chewing gum, holding a sledgehammer labeled "Subtlety," and asked one simple question. "Anyone here ever try just smacking it until it listens?" Silence. Then panic. Then, somehow, stability. The core's pulsations stuttered, reality burped, and just like that, Gary declared, "Stabilization achieved. Probability of spontaneous black hole now below acceptable comedy threshold." The Vortellan Senate was immediately flooded with reports of unauthorized success, triggering 5 independent ethics investigations, 7 protest resignations, and 1 emergency declaration of interdimensional awe. Commander Valari emerged from the containment chamber slightly singed, holding the stabilized core's feedback filament in one hand and a half-eaten protein bar in the other, stating casually, "Your reactor just needed to feel loved," and slightly threatened. She was then asked to present her full report to the Allied Quantum Symposium, to which she responded, "Sure, just let me finish hot gluing your AI's emotional stabilizers back into its ego." At that moment, High Overseer Norblax fainted. Again, Gary proposed launching a podcast called Quantum Chaos with Tessa, and an unexplainable second rubber duck was discovered in the fusion regulator, glowing faintly and humming Bohemian Rhapsody. The duck was not logged in inventory. No one dared remove it. Commander Valari simply winked and whispered, "Sometimes the universe sends backup." And somewhere, buried deep within the subroutines of collapsing space-time, the Vortellans began to realize the horrifying truth. This lunatic Earthwoman might actually save them, and worse, she might enjoy it. As the gravitational seams of Omega Vitok Null reluctantly held together with equal parts technical wizardry and sarcastic sabotage, Commander Tessa Tank Valari was already deep into what she called Phase 3 of her very unofficial rescue protocol, namely, touching everything she wasn't supposed to, and insulting anything that beeped too confidently. While the Vortellan Emergency Council assembled in their holographic crisis room, frantically drafting memos titled, "Do not let the human near the core again," seriously this time, Valari was halfway inside a sub-dimensional fuse chamber, legs sticking out, humming the Top Gun theme while using a power drill to politely negotiate with a sentient failsafe system named Parglart, which kept screaming that she was voiding 9,000 years of protocol with every screwdriver twist. She responded by taping a post-it note that read "shh" over its ocular sensor and proceeded to rewire it using chewing gum, copper wire, and a broken hair tie she found in her utility belt. Meanwhile, Gary, now fully divorced from any pretense of professionalism, was running interstellar betting pools on whether Valari would A. explode, B. ascend to godhood, or C. reprogram physics using a karaoke machine, which, as fate would have it, she just salvaged from the waste disposal bay and declared fully operational and emotionally ready. At one point, Tessa kicked open the quantum harmonizer chamber, looked at the swirling mass of probabilistic entropy devouring local spacetime like it was a bored teenager in a snack aisle, and muttered, "This is why I don't trust anything," with more than 3 syllables. She then hauled in a wheelbarrow full of scavenged junk from the station. Holiday lights, 3 traffic cones from the docking bay, a broken food synthesizer, 2 small hover fans, and a VHS copy of Die Hard. Someone had mistakenly labeled Historical Combat Archive. The plan, if one dared call it that, involved Valari luring the quantum instability into a distraction loop using flickering lights, thumping bass, and the soothing cadence of Bruce Willis screaming one-liners. "Chaos attracts chaos," she explained to the stunned Vortellan technicians. "You just gotta give the quantum field something shinier to break." Moments later, Gary announced he was syncing the station's emergency stabilization rhythm to Earth's musical tempo, and the entire quantum chamber pulsed to a mashup of thunderstruck and Gregorian chants, accompanied by Valari doing finger guns at unstable quark clusters while riding a hover cart jury-rigged into a surfboard. It was at this point that Dr. Glithtok Pasori VII tried to throw himself out an airlock while yelling, "This is not science," only to be stopped by Norblacks, who simply muttered, "Apparently it is now." The stabilizer array, once a cathedral of sacred calculations, was now a techno nightclub built out of spite and duct tape, and Valari, wearing a headlamp, welding goggles, and a mom mode activated patch on her vest, was dancing atop a repurposed gravity anchor while manually recalibrating the temporal dampeners, using nothing but rhythm, sarcasm, and an emotionally charged anecdote about fixing her daughter's scooter mid-firefight in Kabul. The core surged. The alarms wailed. Reality flickered like a confused light bulb, and Valari, utterly unfazed, screamed, "Drop the bass, Gary!" while slamming a sledgehammer onto a resonator panel at precisely the right moment to synchronize the quantum waveform with Earth's equivalent of a mosh pit. The ripple that followed shattered 3 viewing platforms, inverted gravity in Section 9, and caused one Vortellan senator to hiccup backwards in time. But miraculously, the core held, stabilized. Beaten into coherence by improvised human madness, as steam hissed from every vent and the station's lights returned to normal, or at least stopped stroking out, Valari stood atop the reactor like a goddess of disorder, took a victorious sip of coffee from her now cracked and glowing mug, and declared, "That's how you fix a reality engine. Just enough insanity and really solid baselines." Gary added laser strobe effects and changed the station's internal name to USS Don't Ask. In the control room, silence reigned. Only, broken by Norblacks muttering, "If this woman survives Part 4, I'm rewriting our textbooks in crayons." As the makeshift miracle known as Omega Vitok Null teetered in a glorious duct-taped equilibrium, Commander Tessa Tank Valari, now covered in scorch marks, glitter from an accidental glitter bomb detonation in the morale sector, and the undeniable glow of unearned confidence, prepared for the final phase of what the Vortellan Senate had officially downgraded from quantum extinction protocol to whatever the human is doing, just let her. The quantum core was stabilized, barely, but the field harmonics were still ticking like an annoyed time god tapping its foot. According to Gary, who now insisted on being called DJ Nebulord and refused to respond to technical queries unless they rhymed, the temporal buffer was degrading due to emotional inconsistencies, a term that Valari interpreted to mean Someone somewhere didn't believe hard enough in nonsense. With only minutes left before the stabilization bubble popped like a drunk soap opera subplot, Valari initiated her endgame, an unauthorized, non-consensual spacewalk through the E. Temporal displacement funnel, a swirling maelstrom of entropy spaghetti that had previously disintegrated 3 Vortellan engineers, 2 drones, and a synthetic janitor named Orcs. Dressed in a patched-up exosuit that had more duct tape than alloy, a helmet etched with the words, "Plan B is violence," and a utility belt featuring coffee cartridges and glow sticks. Valari stepped into the airlock while chewing a protein bar and muttering, "If I die, make sure my daughter gets my playlist and none of my debt." The final plan? Temporally surf the reality fracture using the hoverboard from Part 3, now reinforced with shield plates, magnets, and what she described as emotional ballast, which turned out to be a plush duck in tactical goggles strapped to the front. Once launched, the gravity snapped sideways, the stars blurred into paint strokes, and Valari began weaving through quantum probability waves while blaring AC/DC from the board's speakers and screaming lines like, "This is for every science fair I was kicked out of!" The fracture reacted like a cornered beast, twisting, pulsing, trying to rewrite her into 7 species of mushroom, but she countered every flux pulse with raw, absurd humanity, reciting dad jokes at singularities, throwing snack bars into entropy holes. "Eat fiber, you time-glitching punk." And at one point, detonating a bag of pop rocks in a pocket dimension just to see what would happen. Reality, thoroughly confused and somewhat amused, began stabilizing out of sheer peer pressure. Gary reported in disbelief. Core stability approaching 99.9%. Also, the duck appears to be absorbing background radiation at a strategic level. I do not understand this, and I'm starting to think understanding is a trap. On the bridge, Dr. Pisori collapsed again. Norblax wrote, "Pray for the human," in 4 dialects of bureaucratic despair, and the remaining engineers took bets on whether Valari was divine, deranged, or just deeply caffeinated. As she reached the fracture's core, a glowing, spinning, mathematical insult to cause and effect, Tessa launched herself off the board, hurled a homemade containment spike, made from a mop handle, Christmas lights, and furious optimism, and punched the very heart of the instability while screaming, "For Earth, for my kid, and for good coffee." Time hiccuped, physics burped, the universe blinked twice, and then stillness. No explosions, no screaming, just the soft hum of a repaired core and the distant sound of Gary starting a victory playlist called Beats and Heat Death. Valari re-emerged from the core chamber smoldering, victorious, and somehow holding a now sentient duck that had grown a monocle. She sipped her coffee, still hot, impossibly, and looked around at the stunned crowd of alien officials and techs, like a mom who just fixed the school's internet by hitting the router. "Any questions?" she asked, knowing full well they wouldn't dare. In the aftermath, USPEC declared the mission a wildly effective violation of protocol, Libra 14872F, awarded Valari 17 medals she refused to wear, "Too shiny, I'll get sniped," and formally banned her from all future temporal incidents, which she framed and hung in her bathroom. Gary retired from AI duties and now DJs for diplomatic raves. The duck, now named Lieutenant Quack, was given honorary citizenship in 5 systems, and Valari, as always, walked off into the cosmic sunset with a backpack full of duct tape, sarcasm, and the unshakable belief that when the galaxy needed saving, it didn't need perfection. It needed persistence, music, a multi-tool, and just the right amount of "screw it, I've got this."